Okay, Robyn. What's your last name, by the way? I don't know your last name. Northam. Okay, Robyn Northam. What I've known about you so far from meeting you today is that you grew up in Cairns. All right? Didn't grow up in Cairns?
No.
Okay,
I grew up on the Sunshine Coast.
Yep.
And when I was 18, I moved to Cairns. Lived there on and off for about 10 years, moved back last year.
Okay, and the Sunshine Coast, is that where we are here?
It's about an hour away, about an hour north.
Okay. So growing up in the Sunshine Coast, I know so far you have two sisters and you said you grew up with your mum, single mum. Okay.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about growing up in the Sunshine Coast. In school, were you quiet? Were you loud? Were you in trouble? Anything like that growing up in school?
I was actually like super confident. Like I had like multiple different friend groups. Like I never really had a clique. Like I had friends everywhere, but I did dancing heaps in high school. So I went to Nambour High. They have a dance program and I was very, very heavy into that there.
Okay. Yeah, my sister did dancing from maybe 5 till 13 or something like that. But my best mate, his older sister did dancing as well. So she did it her whole life. So I spent most of my childhood at a dance studio in Mount George Shopping Centre watching them dance, and don't get me wrong, I had a crush on all the older girls dancing, so it was pretty good. It was pretty good, but then I did break dancing too. I was a b-boy. Most people don't know that about me, but I was a dance kid. I was a dance kid as well.
I was actually in a hip-hop crew for a few years, and we won a couple of championships in Brisbane.
Damn.
After I left, they ended up going to Vegas and like winning world championships and stuff like that. So
damn, that's way better than I was. I was not a b-boy. I regret everything I said. I did nothing. I performed in front of like 50 people and I fell over. So it's good as that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. And then growing up in the Sunshine Coast, moving to Cairns, how far away is that? Cairns is pretty far, isn't it?
It's about 1,800 kilometres.
1,800 kilometres. That's almost as far as Sydney.
Yeah.
It's probably further.
Yeah, it's all the way at the top of Queensland.
Okay.
It's very, very fucking hot up there.
Yeah, yeah.
Like you step off the plane and it smacks you in the face.
It's
disgusting.
And you said you were 18 when you moved there?
Yeah.
18, okay. So was it a big culture change going from being a bit more populated, dense, fun place like Sunshine Coast to somewhere like Cairns? So I don't know anything about Cairns at all.
Yeah, it was actually a huge culture shock for me because I know you've never probably been to the Sunshine Coast, but it's very like privileged. There's a lot of rich people there. There's not a lot of like lower socioeconomic areas there, and there's not a lot of actual Indigenous people or anyone from TI. You go up to Cairns, you walk into the shopping centre, it's spot the white person. So I had to learn very quickly to keep my eyes down and to not stare because it was so like such a shock to the system after just growing up with only really white people and like. You know, there was the odd, like, Indigenous kid in high school, but they weren't, like, in the culture. Do you know what I mean? They were very...
in the Sunshine Coast? Yeah, it was, like, normal to have, like, one or two, or were they...
Yeah. But, like, they were very privileged Indigenous kids. They weren't, you know, from communities and stuff like that, whereas a lot of the kids and people that you see that are in Cairns, a lot of them have come into town from all of the communities that are only Indigenous people. So, like, half of them don't even speak, like, proper English and stuff like that. So,
wow, that would have been a massive change.
Yeah, it was.
And now that you're saying Sunshine Coast, making me think, is that where Pelican Waters is?
Yeah.
Okay, I've spent a little bit of time there. I had an ex-girlfriend whose parents lived in Pelican Waters. So I do know what you mean when you say privileged areas.
Yeah.
Like, it's fucking pretty nice there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So go from there to Cairns.
Yeah, like where we went to high school, that was like the lowest socioeconomic in Nambour, but even then it wasn't really that bad.
Yeah, okay, that's cool. So what's up with the big move? Why did you move all the way to the Cairns at 18?
So I had my first baby at 18 and my mum moved to Cairns when I was pregnant, and after me and baby daddy split up, I didn't really have a support network, so I followed her there. Yeah. And lived with her and worked and stuff like that up there.
Okay. Yeah, cool. And what'd you do for work? What were you doing there?
I was a bartender.
Yeah, you told me that. That's where that bartending job started?
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. Okay. All right, I won't give a shout out to that bar. They're not getting a shout out.
No.
Yeah, that's cool. Having your first baby at 18, I knew we were going to get to this conversation at some point, and we'll go back and forward from it as well, but... Can you run me through, and it was probably and I hope this isn't rude to say online, I can take it out as well, but you're 28 now? 29 now. So that was 10 years ago, rough, bit more?
Yeah, a bit more.
What was that kind of experience like being 18 and realising I'm about to have a baby as well? Because that, to me, as thinking about being an 18-year-old lad, thinking I'm about to have a baby myself is fucking crazy to me, you know?
Yeah. At the time, I thought I was ready for it. I thought I'm 18, I'm an adult, I know what I'm doing, I can make my own decisions now. But I was just a little girl with a lot of hopes and dreams. Like, I got pregnant and I thought, you know, he's going to propose to me, we're going to have our white picket fence, buy a house and live happily ever after. But that's just not how it happens for most people. I was very naive. But, yeah, it was really hard being a young mum. Like, a lot of pressure to do it right. And, like, at the time, I was one of the first, like, in my generation, like, from different schools, like, because Sunshine Coast is very small. You basically grow up knowing everybody. And I was one of the first to get pregnant. So there was a lot of pressure for me to succeed and, like, do it right. And a lot of people talk shit about me. And, you know, even like school teachers and stuff like that were like, oh, I knew you were going to turn out like that. And it just kind of...
definitely.
The stereotype was hard.
Yeah. I didn't really know anyone, especially any girls, to have... I wasn't friends with any girls, at least, to say the least, got pregnant around that age. But there was always, like, someone knew someone who had a kid very early age. But then, like, I didn't hear from them for a while. Did you kind of disassociate from people after that, like, as well?
Yeah, I lost every single one of my friends. I mean, I think I've reconnected with one or two of them now because they have their own families and they get it.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, sorry, we weren't there for you. Like, it is really hard. That was probably one of the lowest points in my life. And because I was so young and naive, like, I don't really remember a lot of the first couple of years of my daughter's life because I was so focused on baby daddy and what he was doing, and I just wanted him to be around and all sorts of stuff. So it was a very, very dark time.
Yeah, definitely. And when you say baby daddy, do you mean, so that was the father of your daughter? And was he, like, supportive at all? Was he, like, in the picture at all or anything like that?
I think he tried to be. Like, we grew up knowing each other. We first met when we were, like, 12. So we were on and off all through teenagehood, and then eventually when I did get pregnant is when we became solid at the time. But he was just far too interested in, you know, drinking, partying and hanging out with mates and getting high and all the things. And, you know, looking back, like, I don't blame him, but it was really hard going through it at the time alone.
Yeah. I think from a guy's perspective, if any guy was to find out the news that they were about to become a dad at 18, it sounds like you had a bit of a maternal instinct automatically, like, I'm mature enough to be able to handle this. I don't think any guy is conscious enough to be like, I'm mature enough to handle this at 18. Like, looking back, I wanted to be a dad at 18 and I wouldn't have had a fucking clue what I'm doing. Yeah.
I mean, he was always supportive of me and what I wanted to do. Like, I have nothing against, like, abortions and stuff like that, but when I found out I was pregnant, it just was never an option. It never crossed my mind. It was like, no, I'm pregnant, I'm having this baby. Like, with or without you. So, I
think that's a very strong mindset, though. I think that shows a massive character, because it's like you've gotten into your situation. Why run from the situation? You know what I mean? You're already here now. And it's kind of like I'm not trying to say it was delusion, but delusion plays a big part in what a lot of people's belief system is as well. You know, like, this is going to work out. Like, this is going to be fine. I think that's a good thing. That's a good thing. I'm glad you didn't do that. And you said you didn't have a problem. You don't have a problem with abortion. Is that like a recent thing, or back then you didn't have a problem with it either? So you're always not minded about it?
I still don't have a problem with it. Like, if it's something that you feel you need to do for you, like, go for it. Like, I'm not judging you. Like, if you feel like having a baby is going to be bad for the baby and bad for you, have an abortion. Like, that's up to you. I'll never tell anyone what they can and can't do with their own body. That's an awesome thing to hear from you as well, being a mum yourself and knowing the serious responsibility it takes to become a mum as well. To know that, like, look, you don't have to do this. I'm not pressuring anyone else to go down the same road I've gone down. That's a very cool thing to say as well, because I've always been, like, unsure about it. It's like, I'm not saying I believe abortion's right or wrong. I
I do feel like, though, it's not my place to be able to tell anyone else what they can and have to do.
Exactly.
Above everything. That's number one.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm open to the idea of it being right or wrong, but it's like it's not my fucking place. I'm not having the baby either.
Yeah. And I think as well, like, when you do have an abortion, like, it does increase your risk of not being able to have kids. And I knew I wanted to have multiple. Mm-hmm. And because I've got daughters as well, I knew that, you know, if they got to an age where they were able to have kids and they got pregnant and they needed my support, I would encourage them to do the same thing. Like, you know, whatever, you know, is right for you, I'll support you. It's your life ultimately.
And then what about in the beginning when you were having a baby at 18? Like, did you have like you were living with your mum at the time when you moved up to Cairns at least? Like, did you find a lot of help at least in that regard? Because if I was to think about having a baby from my perspective, I would not know what the fuck to do. Like,
so I had my daughter on the Sunshine Coast and I lived in a unit with baby daddy for like 10 or 11 months. It wasn't a full year. It was almost a year before I decided I need help. I can't do this by myself. So that's when I moved to Cairns.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Man, I can't even imagine what those 10, 11 months would have been like as well at 18.
Hell.
Yeah, I can try to imagine, but it just sounds crazy. So was it just you two living together?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's wild.
Like,
so you didn't even go through the 18 going out partying yet and clubbing and all that stuff?
So I think it was like a month after my 18th birthday, I found out I was pregnant.
A month after, wow.
Yeah. And, you know, I had only been living out of home at the time for about 4 or 5 months. And that was with his parents. Mm-hmm. So I knew nothing about bills. I knew nothing about taxes. I didn't know how to fill out a rental application. I knew nothing. I was a child.
I still know nothing. I'm 26.
Like, I was a child just trying to do it right for my kid.
Yeah.
And yeah, I needed support from my mum.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, 100%. I can't imagine not having support. That sounds crazy. So I'm glad you had the option to at least go and do that. And did you find that, like, were you, like, wanting to go out and party? Like, because I know that it's pretty common for, like, 18, 19, 20, even up to, I guess, most people 50. People want to go out and club and party and all that stuff. But having the responsibility of being a mum as well, how did that, did you still want to or not want to?
I think between, like, 18 and 20, I was pretty much just head down and working the whole time. But then when I hit 20 and I started going out a bit more and, you know, my daughter was a bit older and I'd put her to bed and on like a Friday night, and because I lived with mum, I'd be like, all right, I'll see you at 4 a.m. And I'd go out clubbing with my friends on the weekend because she knew that I needed to get it out of my system.
100%.
I was going to do it one way or another, whether it was, you know, when she was older and completely disappoint her or while she was little. So I made sure, and my mum made sure that I got it out of my system and I didn't miss out. So I
smart.
was really lucky to
that's
have
so
her.
smart. Because imagine if you like didn't, and then you're like 35, 40 and you're like, I'm still waiting for these years when she turns 18.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay, so then when you moved, did you ever find anyone else around the same age that you could find relatability with, that they were like young mums as well?
Honestly, no, not really. Like, most of the people that I worked with were over 30 and I was like the little sis that they always like took care of and looked out for, and they knew I, you know, was a young mum and I needed support and stuff like that. So I always had a huge support network when I moved to Cairns. I built that through my job that I had. But a lot of the friends that I had, were much older than me and, you know, had older kids that were already in school and stuff like that. So it was still pretty lonely. I didn't really have anyone to relate to. I just kind of had to get on with it.
And did you feel like your mum kind of had a bit of experience in the matter, like it was just you girls and your mum as well? She would have been able to be a bit understanding in that regard as well?
Yeah, like she basically, like my eldest, she basically helped me raise her for the first 5 years of her life. I could not have done it without her. She was the other parent.
Yeah.
And then when I had my second daughter, which was with a different guy, that's when I really had to realise that, you know, I'm like 24 now. I've got to kind of take my finger out and take care of these kids on my own and do what's best for both of them and become a better woman.
Okay, so you're saying you were 24 when you had your second daughter?
Yeah.
So your first daughter would have been around 6, is that right? Around 6? Okay, and now the idea of getting into a relationship with someone else, because, and I asked these questions as well, just so you're aware, because I was in a relationship, and it was actually my last serious relationship, with a girl who had a son already. So I was also very curious while I was going out with her, like how she felt having someone else around while having kids as well. Does that make sense? So I understand that now. I know Zach, shout out to the last episode. Zach, the episode's in the description if everyone hasn't seen that episode yet, episode 140. But I'm curious in the beginning, what's the first feeling like of introducing someone into your already built family? You know what I mean? How does that feel? Opening the doors, letting someone else in as well.
It was very scary. I was very hesitant at first because, you know, anyone that had been in my life dating-wise beforehand had only ever met my eldest as a friend. Okay? She never really knew that I had other boyfriends. It was just, oh, this is my friend, blah, blah, blah. And I never really brought it around her. But with this guy, I was in a really dark place when I met him. And I was sleeping on my auntie's couch and trying to look for a rental and trying to get my license because it took me a really long time to get my license too. And it was just completely manipulated by him. And I know it sounds old and, you know, it's happened to me again since then, but we'll get into that later. He already had 2 kids to 2 other women. And so in my mind, I was like, oh, he's already a dad. He knows what to do.
Commonality in a way as well. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. And then what's that like as well? Like what's it like dating and getting to know people as well while you already have a kid? Do you feel like most guys are okay with it? Are most guys put off by it? Are they open to it? How do you find the general census in it?
I've found a mixed bag, hey.
Yeah, okay.
Like with this baby daddy the second baby daddy that I have, with him, I didn't really think too much about it. We never really discussed it because I knew he had kids. He knew I had a kid, and he knew I wanted more. So
what's it like dating while you already have a kid as well? Because I know me, I jumped straight into the relationship. I didn't even question it, and it kind of excited me more than anything, to be honest. But then a lot of people in my life were like, oh, bro, that's crazy and doing this, something. And maybe some people aren't. But
coming from where I'm at now, it's scary because there's a lot of predators out there.
Yeah.
And it's not something that I ever really thought about, unfortunately. And I wish that I did a lot sooner. But there are a lot of people out there who take advantage of single mums because they think they're easy, they're desperate, and they think that they'll just date anyone because they just want someone to love them.
That is a crazy point I've never thought of.
Yeah.
There is probably a lot of guys out there that are only going after single mums.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
The single mums, and from experience, are very easy to manipulate, and it's terrifying.
Yeah. And I guess that makes sense, actually, now that you say it, because I guess being a single mom, you have a lot of pressure as well. So any form of relief, a little bit of dependency can like help out, even kind words in that regard, because you're always being the boss. Now it's kind of nice to have like someone to just even spend time with. I guess it would, in a sense, be easier, I guess, to manipulate single moms.
Yeah, and especially because I was a teen mum, like all I've ever known in adulthood is taking care of somebody else. So having someone else attempt to try and take care of me was refreshing.
Yeah.
And it was, it took a weight off my shoulders, even if it was done in the wrong way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, okay. And then did you already move out of Cairns? Were you still in Cairns at that point?
No. So
Okay.
I'd moved back at that point. That was, I did about an 18-month stint here before I moved back to Cairns again. So on and off for about 10 years in Cairns. So 18 months that I was here was when I had my second daughter.
Okay.
I was only with that guy for like 4 months before I got pregnant.
Yeah, that is exactly me and my ex's story as well. I said it on the podcast recently, so I'll say it again, but we were together for 3 or 4 months, and then she fell pregnant with me, and she already had a kid with someone else. But then that pregnancy didn't work out, and then our relationship didn't work out, so water under a bridge now.
Yeah.
But I can understand jumping into a relationship and having kids really quickly. It's weird because beforehand I would have thought people are crazy doing it.
Yeah.
To be honest, if I still hear people are doing it, to be honest, I know a girl at the moment, she just met the guy, they've been pregnant within a couple months, and I think to myself, that's crazy, what are you doing? And I literally did it like a year ago.
Yeah.
I still think it's crazy.
It happens so easily.
Yeah.
You know, and he sold me, you know, hopes and dreams. When I found out I was pregnant, that pregnancy, I did think about abortion because I was like, ooh, you know, you've already got 2 baby mums. Like, I don't know if I'm ready for that yet. But I was sold hopes and dreams and white picket fences.
Yeah.
And then COVID hit.
Yeah. Okay. Well, okay. So now I'm getting a bit of a timeline too to help me work it out as well.
Yeah.
So then you found out you were pregnant with him, and then you moved back to Cairns. How long after that?
So I was pregnant during COVID, and then April 2020, my youngest was born. And then about 2 months later, I moved back to Cairns.
Oh, okay, so it didn't take too long.
Yeah.
Didn't take too long.
Yeah.
And was that more of a realization, like, or did you already have the realization beforehand, like, this isn't the dream I've been sold, this guy's full of shit?
Yeah, basically, like, you know, as soon as I moved in with him, I realized this guy's crazy.
Yeah.
I should not be here. But because of COVID, and I was a single mum, I couldn't get a job because I was pregnant. I couldn't leave. I couldn't go anywhere. I had no money. So I was basically stuck in this relationship.
Oh, that's crazy, eh? I wonder how many people have been affected by shit like that before.
Yeah.
Like, COVID would have been a cherry on top as well. But being through that experience, do you think that's a pretty common thing for a girl to be pregnant and then realize, fuck, this guy's not who I thought he was?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I think, like, personally, I think he's a narcissist.
Yeah.
I think once they get you, that's when they drop all their walls and they show you exactly who they are. But then you're so wrapped around their finger of, like, manipulation and that you're not enough and you're a burden and no one else is ever going to want you. This is the bed you've made. You've got to lay in it now. And I think so many women experience that, especially with, like, emotionally abusive relationships.
Wow. It's crazy as well being a single lad at the moment, right? The idea of manipulation, when you're saying it in that sense, it sounds so evil, like a guy's so evil. But then when I'm used to thinking about the manipulation, it's like tactics, like, you know, pick up lines and like things like that. But I guess the more manipulative you play the game, it will actually turn into a complete disaster.
Yeah.
You know? And you're actually kind of opening my eyes to how bad manipulation can be. I always thought manipulation was just like lying to get what you want. And, you know, to be honest, that's not that bad in my head.
Yeah.
You know? But then when it's coming with condescension, like,
Yeah.
you can't do any better and shit like that.
Yeah.
It's actually painting a scarier picture for me than I thought it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, like, the first couple of months of our relationship, this guy was like borderline perfect. And I was like, he's amazing. He's everything I've ever wanted, like, personality wise, like, and, you know, he's a dad, he's dedicated and all this sort of stuff. But the day that we found out that I was pregnant, that's when the abuse started. So literally that day he was screaming abuse at me, calling me stupid, a dumb cunt and all this sort of shit. Got absolutely blind, rotten drunk and, like, completely bashed somebody at this housewarming we were at and blamed me for it, like, and I believed him at the time. That's how deep the manipulation went, is he was like, well, you got pregnant, so that's why I'm angry. You know? And I actually blamed myself for a really, really long time.
Yeah, that's crazy. So then moving back up to Cairns again after, I can imagine it was a very rough 2 months having the newborn as well and having the responsibility of having your first daughter as well.
Yeah.
Was that like a bit of, and if it's too personal, don't hesitate, don't answer this, I'll cut it out. But was it like more of like a flee situation? Like, I just got to get away now?
Yeah.
Or is like already separated and kind of thing?
Yeah. I was, at the time, afraid for my life.
Yeah.
Like, when I was living with him, we lived on this 10-acre property that was surrounded by trees, and, like, he would casually joke that he could shoot me, bury me on the property, and no one would ever find me.
Fuck, that's a crazy person, eh?
Yeah.
Wow.
And he would laugh it off at the time, and I'd be like, oh, ha, ha. But, you know, after I left and I was staying at my grandparents for a couple of months, that's when I started to plan to actually get the hell out of here because I was terrified. Yeah.
Damn, that's crazy. And honestly, you're really making me think to myself, like, I wonder how many people are in that situation like that. Like, to be honest, I'm very ignorant to the world. I walk around thinking that life is exactly the same for me as it is for everyone else.
Yeah.
But I'm never really aware of how many fucking psycho lads there are out there.
You know the saying, have you ever heard the saying, like all men, it's all men? I don't specifically believe that it's all men, but it is all women. Every single woman that I know has either been in an abusive relationship, has been sexually assaulted, or has felt extremely uncomfortable and unsafe and afraid for their life because of a man.
Really? That's crazy. There is a statistic at the moment I've been hearing lately that's like, I think it's like 10% of men are having 90% of the sex with women, which means like there's a very few amount of men who are, I guess, desirable, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I wonder if it is those 10% of men that are the more abusive types, or if it's the 90% of men that are the more abusive types, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have no idea how to answer. I have no idea.
Yeah.
But going back and now having your newborn as well, was there any difference in being pregnant for the second time? Was it like a whole new experience, or was it kind of like doing it all over again? It was like
Huge difference.
Yeah, okay.
Huge difference, because when I decided to leave, that's when I made the decision that I wasn't going to repeat that cycle again. I just said to myself, there's no way I'm ever having another man's baby unless I'm married to him.
Yeah.
And he's proved to me that he deserves me because I'm worthy of that.
Yeah.
You know, like that was a huge turning point for me. And the pregnancy in itself, like I was so much more mature. I knew so much more about the world and how the world worked. And just from being in that relationship, the way that men's brains work, and the difference between someone who is being genuine and someone who's like love bombing you as well. And
love bombing, and even in that sense as well, like the term love bomb, I only hear girls really talk about it. Does that mean that they're like telling you they love you, or does it just mean showing you like a lot of affection in the beginning? Like, what do you mean by love bombing?
They're giving you everything that you say that you want, regardless of if it's what they want to give you, so that they can win you over. And then after they finish love bombing you, their real personality starts coming out, and then the girl keeps trying to go back and go, oh, well, you used to be like this and you used to be like that. Let's go back to that. And it's constantly like trying to fight to get back to what they had at the beginning, but that's not actually who that person really is. So that's a huge manipulation tactic.
Okay, is it possible, do you reckon, to know if someone's love bombing before, like, or do you only find out later? Like, how, you can't really. Is there signs now that you've like gone through experiences?
There's definitely signs, but I wouldn't be able to tell you what they are.
Yeah, because when you're explaining it to me, I'm thinking to myself like, fuck, how does I'm thinking, what if a girl accidentally thinks I'm love bombing her if I genuinely am falling for this girl, you know?
Yeah.
What if she's like, fuck, he's love bombing me, I've got to get out.
Yeah,
like,
I think it's just something that you have to experience through time.
Yeah,
as well.
yeah.
Like,
I guess caution.
Yeah, like with Zach, like when I first got with him, like it was so easy and we got along so well and he was everything that I wanted. I questioned myself for months whether he was love bombing me or not, but that's just who he is. So I found that out.
yeah, that's cool. I do remember in my specific example when I was dating this girl, we had the discussion to not rush into anything and make sure that, you know, I was not going to jeopardize anything, not going to cause any confusion with her son, and make sure that I was okay to bring me around, that kind of stuff. And I was like, well, please, 100%. I'm not trying to get involved in anything I shouldn't. And honestly, it took like a week and I was already over there again. So I think to myself, like, it's still very easy, even if you want to be careful, to just like, just life just happens whether you try and do or not. Yeah. Okay, so then going through this time though, when you're pregnant with your second daughter, did you find that the raising the kid and having the kid and looking after the kid was the same as it was the first time again, or is it a whole new experience having a second kid as it is having a first kid? Does that make sense for a question?
I feel like the experience somewhat is the same, but because I was a bit older, like I had more experience from having a baby already, so I kind of knew what to do. Like the first time around, it was just like throwing spaghetti at a wall and hoping that it worked. But with my second, I picked that up so quickly, so naturally, and she just kind of, you know, was there. It wasn't any real difference to having one kid versus having two.
Yeah, yeah. And also, what was it like trying to juggle the tension between two kids and now? Because now you've got a 6-year-old and you've got a newborn as well. 6-year-old's probably used to having all the attention, and now you've got a new baby as well.
Yeah.
How was that dynamic like in the beginning?
Well, I was lucky because when I was just before I had my second, my eldest started prep. So she was at school 5 days a week.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So I got all the alone time that I needed with Bub. And then when the older one would come home, Bub was pretty much in bed.
Oh, that's
till
so
8 o'clock.
convenient.
Yeah.
Eh?
So they both got the same amount of time with me, really.
Yeah. Okay, that's mad. That's heaps convenient as well. And now, what about when you went back up to Cairns the second time? Did you go back and get into the same kind of routine with working, like say a pub job, say for example?
Yeah.
Were you trying to get back into a lifestyle when you were up there?
Yeah, I went back to the same job.
Okay.
So they took me back, and I worked there for, I want to say, like a year and a half, and then that's when I quit. We talked about that earlier.
Yeah.
And I started a beauty diploma, and I studied for a year. But in 2022, I actually had a severe mental breakdown and like had an attempt, ended up in the psych ward and diagnosed with BPD. So that was really
Okay.
yeah. I've hit rock bottom a few times.
Yeah, definitely sounds like it. We were discussing it off camera a bit too, and I was like, let's just save a little bit for the pod as well. You know? Okay. BPD, is that BPD, borderline personality disorder?
Yeah.
Okay. I actually have experience as well, dating a girl who had severe borderline personality disorder as well. So I have a couple of curious questions about that as well. But first of all, why do you feel like you went through this spiral in the first place? Like, why was it that the second time you moved up, was already stable enough to be working for a year? Then what kind of kicked off? You know what kicked off as a mental downfall?
After leaving second baby daddy, I was seeing a therapist and my doctor regularly, and I was having like severe PTSD from being in that relationship, and I couldn't see a way out of it. I was getting triggered every single day. I was constantly crying about, everything because I dragged my eldest through all of that, and there was so much guilt, and I just kept thinking to myself, like, they would just be better off without me. Like, I don't need to be here. They've got my mum. She can do a better job than I can. Yeah, it was pretty fucked up.
Yeah, no, that sounds rough. It almost sounds like taking accountability way too far, because sometimes accountability is the wrong direction.
Yeah.
It's good to look back and be like, okay, maybe I did something wrong, but then to blame yourself for the situation is different, because I hope you know this now, but looking back, you actually couldn't have done it any other way.
Yeah.
You didn't know any better,
Yeah.
So it's not like you did anything wrong.
Yeah.
Just because you didn't do something right doesn't mean you did something wrong, you know? They're not necessarily polar opposites.
Yeah.
There is room for learning in the
Yeah.
first place.
Yeah. 100%.
Different if you were like, okay, 5th baby daddy now, maybe a 6th, 7th, 8th baby daddy now. Maybe I should take some accountability by now.
Yeah.
But then you said you were seeing a therapist in the beginning. Did you find from your experience seeing a therapist was beneficial? Was it helpful?
To a degree. I actually think that I was misdiagnosed. I was seeing a different doctor after all of that, and he thinks that I have ADHD, and something that a lot of people don't know, but when you live, especially as a woman, with undiagnosed ADHD for your whole life, some of the symptoms can present as BPD because you're traumatized from being told that you're wrong, and the way that your brain works is wrong, and you shouldn't do this and you can't do that. Like, you become traumatized from it. So I don't actually think that I have BPD. That's just what's on my file medically. Yeah. But yeah, I was put on like Seroquel. And
Seroquel's a dangerous prescription drug. Honestly, I have people in my close life that have been put on that for mental health, and they've had suicide attempts because of it.
Yeah. So I was on, I think it was 60 milligrams of Seroquel every day and 120 milligrams of Prozac as well, and I was just a shell. Just a zombie.
It's insane to think that the alternative to people with mental disorder is give them a drug that creates suicidal tendencies.
Yeah.
Like,
Crazy.
I don't understand how that's even a thing. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, so And then you said mental institution, is that what you called it?
A psych ward.
A psych ward. How did that, is that because of the suicide attempt? Is that why it ended up in that situation?
Yeah.
And was that a helpful experience being placed into a place like that, or was that just like putting a criminal in jail who's already on drugs? Like,
it was definitely confronting.
Yeah.
I think it made me realize that I wasn't as crazy as I thought I was, because there were people in there who were like hearing voices and stuff, and I wasn't hearing any of those. I was just like, you know, I was standing over my toilet with a handful of pills, wanting to swallow them all and just cut the lights out. But I ended up ringing my mum instead and being like, I'm really scared of myself right now. I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And she was like, I'll come get the girls, drive yourself to the hospital. And I put myself in.
Yeah.
And they held me for, I think it was 72 hours. And I saw a therapist in there, and seeing all the other people that were in there, I realized, okay, maybe I'm not as bad as I think. I actually feel better coming here just by seeing other people's experiences.
Yeah.
And I wanted to get out of there really quickly. It was very confronting.
Fuck, I can't imagine being in a psych ward and hearing other people just going through their shit. One thing that I do find to be a kind of a helpful bit of advice that I tell myself anyway, so maybe someone else might find it helpful, but especially with women, a suicide attempt can often be saved very quickly last minute, very, very quickly. Like you said, you called your mum right when the decision was about to be made.
Yeah.
Like, I've been very fortunate that there are some amazing women in my life that have sometimes even just eaten them as well, and then been like, fuck, and then called their mum, and then called a friend, and then called the ambulance, you know? And it's like, I'm just so glad, and it might even just be a human instinct that we have like a fight or flight moment, the last resort that's like, get me. It doesn't, and it's like, I understand the situation. Like, in the moment, you can't, and as you were saying, like, they're probably better off without me. And you've told yourself this narrative until the point where you believe it. But there's still a last second glimpse of faith and hope that's like, no, I don't want this to end, you know? And I'm so glad that it exists. I do find that it's a lot more common with women to have it. And I think that the maternal instinct is a big role to play in that.
Yeah, I pretty much saw my kids' faces at my funeral, and I was just like, I could not do that to them. Like, imagine growing up saying, oh, my mum killed herself.
Yeah.
She didn't think she was good enough to be our mum. Like,
Yeah.
I couldn't put them through that.
Yeah.
Putting them through having me as a mum is not the bad alternative, if that makes sense.
Yeah, of course. Well, there's always room to grow, you know, let alone more than anything, you know.
Yeah.
Which is, and I get it. Like, trust me, in the moment, I understand how there is no light at the end of the tunnel. You can't see a possible future.
Yeah.
From that moment, did things start to change, or was it still a bit of a cycle or a bit of a slump and depression after that moment?
It took a long time, a few months at least, for me to get back to any sort of normal thinking pattern. But I was heavy in, is it outpatient or inpatient?
I don't know.
I was still like a patient of the hospital, but didn't have to stay there.
Yeah.
So I had people checking up on me. If I didn't go to an appointment, they'd come to my house and make sure I was okay. So for, I think it was 3 or 4 months after I got let out, they were up my ass
to
definitely. Make sure I was okay. So that was good. But not long after that is when I met my current ex.
Yeah.
And he was probably the worst person I've ever been with.
Oh, I gotta be honest with you.
It gets worse.
That's fucked.
It's like every time I got better, I just got knocked back out again.
Okay. It sucks that it got worse, to be honest with you. But so you said you're starting to feel a bit better, things are going good, and then someone steps into your life, and then did it feel like it was good for a while with them?
Yeah. Again, it was heavily love bombed by this person. He made me believe all of that he was God's gift to women. And he probably has traumatized me more than anybody. He ended up cheating on me with 5 different women. But not only that, because I've got a small following online, like, one of the girls that he cheated on me with was actually one of my followers, and he'd made out like he had no idea who I was, but he actually used to watch my videos with her in bed. He'd moved from another state to Cairns and was still dating her. I didn't know. Was also dating another girl in Cairns at the time and me. and sleeping with 2 other people.
What?
And I didn't find any of this out until almost a year after it happened.
Wow.
So when I found out everything that he'd done, I realised that I was essentially living with my stalker.
Oh my God. I just realised what you said, that he was watching. He knew who you were.
He knew who I was.
I thought you just meant he knew the girl that he slept with was one of your followers after you'd already been with him. So he knew you before you met him.
Yeah.
And then followed you and stalked you. What the fuck?
Yeah.
That is crazy.
So
Wow.
that's when, like, I was...
And were you living with him when you realised this? And is that what you said? You were living with him, or you were just dating him at this time?
No, so I found out that he'd cheated on me, and that was it for me. If you cheat, you're done.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I won't give you no second chances for that. So after I left, I ended up speaking to this girl who was my follower, and she was like, actually, we used to lay in bed together before I even met him and watched my videos.
Wow.
So she told me he knew who I was the entire time, and it freaked me out. Because I had my kids living, and it was just...
That is crazy. So, because in the moment, like you just thought you just bumped into someone and met someone. It was like a story of, like, wow, that's fucking crazy, eh? Yeah, that is manipulation at its finest.
Yeah, and he completely stripped me of my personality. Like, at the time that we met, he knew I was doing OnlyFans when we met, and he basically, you know, all this other shit happened, and he told me that if I wanted to be in a relationship with him, that I had to stop.
Mm-hmm.
And I was moving away from it anyway, so I stopped it, but he wouldn't let me wear certain things. He wouldn't let me post certain things online. He, you know, told me, you know, my TikTok career is going nowhere. I should just give up and all this sort of stuff, and I need to step up and be a real adult and all this sort of shit. So I put my everything that I'd worked for on the back burner because of his opinion of me, and I thought that I wasn't worthy of him because I'd had an OnlyFans. Like, he made me feel like I was lucky to be with him.
Yeah. And how long was this relationship for?
Just over a year.
Yeah, just over a year. Okay. And was it like pretty quickly into the relationship that he was trying to get you to change some of your already built lifestyle and routine and stuff?
Yeah.
That's one thing that I think is a very important thing for people to understand. Like, you can't get into a relationship with someone and expect to rewrite their path for what you think is the better option. You know what I mean? Like, you can help guide someone if they are already open to the idea of changing themselves for the better.
Yeah.
Then it's your job to be a supportive role.
Yeah.
But you can't just get in there and be like, yo, you cut this out
Yeah.
as well. Do you feel like, and you said you wanted to, you're on the exit of having OnlyFans and stuff like that, you're kind of leaving that in, would you have left it anyway if he didn't tell you to do it?
Yeah, I was on my way out because that contributed massively to my mental breakdown as well, because I had dropped all of my morals just to make money because I was so broke. And I that's not who I am. So I was moving away from it anyway. But when he basically told me, well, if you want to be worthy of me, you have to stop, and you can't dress this way, and you can't talk like that, and you can't post this, and you can't post that. Yeah. Especially
because you're telling me about the TikTok before, which I don't have TikTok, so I'm going to download it and look it up so I know your page, because I feel like I should be a bit more educated in the people that I do podcasts with. But you're all vlogging, you know, you're showing off, you know, your lifestyle, you know, having kids, having the house and anything like this as well. It's like, to try and get someone just to stop making content just in the first place, I think it shows an insecurity of the guy in the first place, you know, because he's not comfortable, especially telling you how to dress. He's not comfortable with he's not confident enough in himself in the first place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And essentially, like, he's half the reason why I'm so scared to vlog now, because I realized that I was posting online my daily routine for the entire world to see, where I went to gym, where I spent time, where I worked.
Oh, and he figured you out, and he fucking finessed it. Wow. That's fucking so crazy. Yeah. That's so crazy. I often get confused of how big TikTok is, you know, but we were talking about it before, and like 60,000 people is like so many fucking people. Of course there's going to be at least a couple freaks in there, you know?
Yeah.
There's probably 600 freaks in 60,000.
Yeah.
There's a theory that like our family says that's like 1 in every 100 people was a freak. I think 1 in every 1,000 is a psycho.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Okay, so do you mind me asking as well, the concept of like getting into OnlyFans in the first place, I can understand it from a sense of like, you saw it as the only real option to start making more money, especially having 2 kids as well. At this point, were you living you're living back here? No, you weren't living in Cairns anymore? You were
When I started my OnlyFans, I was living back in Cairns.
You were living in Cairns.
Yeah.
And you were planning to get away from Cairns? Or is that your hope, like to leave there?
Eventually, I wanted to, after I moved back to Cairns the second time, the plan after I got myself stable enough with a good income was to move to Victoria and live in Melbourne. Because for me, wanting to be an influencer, being in a city made sense.
Yeah.
Like living up in Cairns and wanting to be an influencer, zero fucking sense whatsoever.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And then the whole world of it, when you said you came to that realization, like, okay, I don't want to be doing this anymore because, and I'm pretty sure that you said like, you felt like you taken away your, was it morals by having it? Like,
my values.
Values,
like,
that's the word, values.
You know.
Did you have that in the first place? And was it a hard decision to come to the idea of doing it in the first place? Or was it only a bit later on when you realized like, I shouldn't have done this from the jump? You know what I mean? Like, did you have that hesitation in the beginning?
Admittedly, I kind of did it as a bit of a fuck you to my second baby daddy.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
because I was like, you don't get to tell me what I'm worthy of. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to make my own worth.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be able to choose what I do and, put my body where I want to put it kind of thing. And something that kept echoing in my brain was something he said to me. And he was, because when I started my TikTok was when I was pregnant. And I remember something he said to me and it just kept playing in my mind over and over again was, the only reason you'll ever make it online and ever make money is because you're hot. So in my brain, I was like, well, fuck you. I'm going to use my hotness to get as rich as possible. And you can never control me again.
Yeah, I get it. I can understand it, especially from a fuck you sense. Like, I've gone through breakups with girls and to be honest, my entire Snapchat stories just for the next 6 months were strip clubs and going out and getting with girls and all that. And it's kind of like a fuck you statement, you know? So I get it. Completely get it. Looking back on it, do you think that, and I had this theory that culture has played a big part in women's empowerment movement, which there's obviously nothing wrong with that, but I feel like it's been promoted for OnlyFans to be self-empowerment. Did you find it to be empowerment since you're not doing it anymore, or is it like a misconception that's...
It's definitely a huge misconception. Like, to begin with, it was, a bit of a thrill to be like, oh, I just made, a couple of $100 and I didn't even have to leave my house. But it stripped me of the opportunity to, be able to do that with someone that really loved me. Like, that kind of stuff. Like, I was sharing my body with the world when I could have been sharing it with someone who really gave a shit. When these people that were buying my content are actually fucking sleazebags.
Yeah.
And don't give a shit about me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's crazy because it's like, I know so many lads, but I've never met a lad who's admitted to paying for OnlyFans before. So maybe maybe people I know are doing it, but they're just not doing it. But it makes me think to myself, like, so maybe I'm just not hanging out with the guys who are paying for it. And it's like, well, then who's out there paying for it? You know what I mean?
Sleazebags.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I had a lot of women that had been following me for years that were watching it and all that sort of stuff. And I was okay with that because I was like, oh, women supporting women. But at the same time, like, I feel like, I feel kind of bad because I had a responsibility to show them what real female empowerment was. And I did it in the wrong way. And I regret that.
But again, it's like you kind of don't have to beat yourself up for it in a sense of even regretting it, because you can't know things until you've done it, It's not, I don't think anyone's ever doing anything wrong unless they're continuing to go down the same cycle of 6 months on, 6 months off, 6 months on, 6 months off. When someone's like, even when someone's like on drugs, in my opinion, I still don't judge that person until they've gotten clean and then gotten back on drugs again. Then I'm like, bro, you've been down here before. We didn't need to go down this road again,
Like, in my experience, ultimately, every girl that I've met that does OnlyFans is extremely insecure. And they do it for validation. They do it to, see, look, I am pretty. People love me because they pay for my content, but really, it's got nothing to do with it.
Yeah,
They're just sleazy.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point. And sometimes I think to myself at the end of it. Sometimes I think to myself, are some of the lads that I know that are constantly chasing girls and pulling girls, I think to myself, are they insecure at the end of the day? And they constantly need the validation from so many different girls to feel like they're confident.
Yeah.
And I bet it's a very similar, very, very similar thing.
Definitely.
Yeah. So then once you'd separated from this crazy stalker of a guy and you'd gotten out of that relationship, and did you find yourself already bouncing back before you found out that he was a crazy stalker guy, or were you still stuck in this run where you were like, he stripped me of my confidence and I lost myself through that relationship? Did you already start to climb out of that again, or were you still stuck in that place when you found out he was a stalker?
I went straight into survival mode, and I was just like, I have to do whatever I can to get as far away from this person as possible. So that's when I came back to the Sunshine Coast, and I moved in with my sister, and my mum was down here. She was living in a bus, and she was parked out in front of my sister's house. So I just surrounded myself with family.
Yeah. And that would have been a very, very massive, great leap to at least surround yourself with family and stuff like that as well.
Yeah.
Did this put a big scare factor on your mind for dating men after all these experiences? Because you didn't have a good track record. Eh?
The only reason that I gave Zach any time of day is because I know him from high school. I knew he wasn't a psycho killer. Yeah. But yeah, I told myself when I got back here, I'm not dating for a few years. And it actually only took a couple of months.
Yeah. You can't tell yourself that. Yeah. I've done episodes. I did an episode with a brother and a sister together because they're both my friends. I'm friends with the whole family. And in our episode, I asked them both, why are you single? Why don't you get a boyfriend? And one of them said, I don't know. I would like to find someone, but I'm never going on a dating app. Like, I'm never going to do it. Pretty quickly after she got on a dating app and met the love of her life within a day. And the other guy goes, I don't know, Doxie. Like, I'm just not interested. I don't want a girlfriend. I'm not ready for a girlfriend. Pretty quickly, he got himself a love of his life. You know what I mean? Yeah. So whatever you tell yourself, this time frame, it ain't that.
And you know what? Like, and I've heard stories like this over and over and over again. When you're not looking, that's when they come.
Exactly right. Trust me, I test it. Like, I even said to myself for a while, like, I'm going to get a girlfriend in March. Like, I tested for this year. I think March will be a good season. I'll get a girlfriend in March. That'll be a good time for it. Then March came and someone popped into my life and I was like, yeah, you know what? I said it would happen in March, and there was just no chemistry there. I was like, fuck, you can't tell yourself when it's going to happen.
Yeah.
I'll start telling myself it's not going to happen.
Yeah. You can plan all you want, but life will happen while you're planning.
Yeah, it doesn't matter how I feel. Life has its own plan, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Now, because I know you through the relationship that you have with Zach, and you said it only took a few months before you met Zach as well. This, what has been described to me as rock bottom, and it sounds like the scariest realization of all time, to realize that you finally gave someone another chance. He ends up being not just a cheater, but a fucking stalker and a psychopath at the end of the day. How did this climb start to begin of going from such a dark place to the place that I know you now, which is what appears to be, I'm not inside your head, I don't know you as well as Zach does, but it appears to be a confident, proud, happy, constantly chasing more of an individual. So for the person that you described to the person that I'm meeting today, it sounds like a pretty big difference to me.
Yeah.
So how did this ascension kind of start? Was it like before you met Zach, while you with Zach?
I think when I started, like, we'd been on a couple of dates, and I decided that if I didn't want to repeat all the same patterns that I had before by dating toxic men, I had to choose differently. I had to do things differently. I had to stop just accepting things as they were and actually open my mouth and say, this is what I want. If you can't give it to me, you need to leave, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I just didn't want to continue to repeat the same pattern. Like, you know, when I got back to the Sunshine Coast, my eldest had just turned 9. And I realised, you know, in 3-4 years, she's going to be a teenager. Anything I do from this point on, I mean, yes, everything I did before is going to affect her in some way. But anything I do from this point on, she's going to remember
and
for the rest of her life.
And adapt really quickly.
And I wanted to give her and my youngest the best possible chance to have a good example of a healthy relationship.
Yeah. And I think that is very, very important for every child to at least experience, to know what a healthy relationship is, because I believe, and this is going to sound very controversial to be honest with you, but my opinion is a motherly love is something that everyone needs. It's unconditional. There's no such thing as a mother figure, but there's definitely such thing as a father figure.
Yeah.
And I think that biologically speaking, men kind of have the capability to be able to step into the role of that. But I don't know if a single woman without kids would ever be able to step into the role and take over a mum's position in a household, you know? Because in order to be a great person, the theory... The fucking battery died. I was on a roll. I was on a fucking roll. All right, I'll pick it up in a minute. Fuck. I was on a roll. Unfortunately, before the cameras died, I was on a roll. I don't fucking remember what it was that I was talking about. Question was, when did you feel yourself climbing out? When did you feel yourself? I might ask that question again from the jump and say, when did you feel like you were starting to climb out of that hole that you got put in with the last person you were with?
Pretty much, you know, probably a couple of months after I started dating Zach again. I just decided that if I wanted to change the patterns that I'd been repeating, I had to do something differently. So that's when I approached Zach and I said, look, this is what I want. If you can't give that to me, then see you later, basically.
Yeah. Okay, and I remember a question now that I wanted to ask you in the first place. So it's pretty obvious that you didn't have a very good track record with the guys you were choosing, right? How did you find that you were able to break that cycle? And was there anything that you had to change in yourself that you feel like maybe some other people don't, you know what I mean? Like, as I bet some people are in a constant cycle of picking the wrong boy, finding out when it's too late, and then having the whole thing happen again. Yeah. What changes had to be made in order for that to happen?
I just had to get really fucking honest with myself about what I wanted. And I realised through that process that I'd been a bit of a pick-me. I just wanted to be chosen. I just wanted to be loved. I just wanted, because I'd been, you know, let down and rejected so many times that I felt like my worth was determined by a man. And I decided that needed to change. My worth needed to come from within me, and the rest would just happen naturally.
So you're trying to find the validation from within yourself instead of trying to search for it from someone else?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense. I've actually, to be honest, that's actually a human trait in general, not just a feminine desire, because I find that I've, for a long time in my life, put my validation on the fact that girls want to be with me. So when I'm not in a relationship with someone, or I feel like I haven't gotten much attention from a girl for a while, then I start to be like, oh, who am I? What am I doing? I don't know who I am. And it took a long time to work out the self-confidence aspects to the point now where it's like, unless it's perfect, I'm not willing to do it. You know what I mean? But for a long time, it was like, oh, whoever's there. It doesn't really matter, you know?
I think because, like, my whole life, since I was a little girl, I always wanted to be a wife. Like, I always looked at, like, my great-grandparents. They were married from when I think my great-grandma was, like, 19. And they were together until the very end. And I always looked up to them and I was like, I want that. I want someone in my life forever to witness me and to bear witness to me, and I can bear witness to them, and, you know, have someone to have a story with, you know. And I had to be really fucking honest about who I wanted that person to be, what their values were, and how they complemented my life, rather than, you know, that be where my value is. It's just with my partner, if that makes sense. Like, I wanted to be valuable to them as well.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I feel like in the process of doing so, just by making that list in your head, right? And this is actually something that I learned from a girl. Make a list of the things that you're not going to tolerate, right? And I'm not saying you necessarily did that, but you told yourself from the jump, like, things need to change. And your list sounded like it was more like, I need to be confident enough and validate myself enough. And if someone's not good enough, I don't need it. I'll get it from myself.
Yeah.
Just by making that list, even if it's sometimes for the first time, is enough to find the right person.
Yeah.
You know?
100%.
And to be honest, I've dated a girl once and she had a list and she told me I was everything on the list. And then I made a mistake and then it turned out I wasn't the perfect person for the list. And then we broke up. You know what I mean? I'm like, oh, I kind of respect it. You know what I mean? I wasn't the person you were looking for. Yeah. Now, has there been anything that you think's definitely helped while being with Zach that has helped move things along in the right direction? Has there been any lifestyle changes or choices that have been differently to help feel more better about the situation? You know what I mean? Because it's like you went through some pretty serious stuff and you're not in that hole anymore, which is such an important thing. So many people are in that hole. Is the lifestyle the same as it was when you were in that hole, or is lifestyle different?
The whole lifestyle is different. Like, I take care of myself on a completely different level. I don't do it to, like, I used to take care of myself in the way of, like, you know, having my hair, my makeup done, looking good, all that sort of stuff for the validation of other people. I don't do that for other people anymore. I do it for me so that I can feel good and I can be that best version of myself. What does that look like? I ask myself every day, who do I want to be? That's who I've got to be today. That's who I've got to show up as. What does the best version of me look like, act like, walk like, talk like? Who does she have as friends? Is she dating? Like, how does she treat her kids? What does she eat? Every single aspect of my life is now for me. Like, I learned to love myself again, come home to myself. And, like, when I talk to myself now, I talk to myself as if I'm talking to, like, the 8-year-old version of me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like an innocent, sweet little. I was gonna say like unexperienced. You know what I mean? Like you got to learn to love yourself. There's this rule of life, and it's actually in Jordan Peterson's book. Actually, said treat yourself like a pet you're trying to look after.
Yeah. Because
if your pet needed medicine, you'd make sure it got it every single day.
Yeah.
But for some reason, for us, we don't give ourselves our daily medicine. You know. And sometimes it's good to just treat yourself and like you said, like the 8-year-old version of yourself, because that's someone that's like being a mum yourself. You know, it's like you're tending for a sweet little innocent child.
Yeah. And at the same time, like, who did she need? Who did 8-year-old Robyn need? That's who I need to be, because the world needs it. Like, my daughters need that, and if I'm not loving myself and being the example for them and putting me first, they're always going to put themselves second. And I don't want that for them either.
Yeah.
So
I love that. Now, and this, I might ask this question as well, coming from the fact that you've opened my eyes to the fact that there'd probably be so many women out there stuck in a shit situation with a shit guy, especially having a kid and feel like they're trapped in that situation. Like, how important do you feel like it was for your daughters to have a man around, you know? And even though it wasn't the right man in the beginning, of course you got to get rid of that guy as well. But now having like Zach in the picture, just someone who's a masculine person in the right ways, how important have you noticed any differences? Does it feel like it's a big importance to have on the kids?
Yeah, 100%. And like, especially because I didn't have that either. Like, that is probably the most important thing to me, is for them to see what a healthy man looks like, how he treats his woman, and what real love is as well. Like, we kiss and make out and like act like teenagers in front of them, and they hate it. They think it's disgusting. But at the end of the day, when they're older, that's what they're going to go looking for.
Yeah.
You know, one day when they're in their 20s, they're going to be like, I want to love like mum and dad have.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Oh, that's so sweet. That's so sick. That's so disgusting, you two.
Yeah.
You two disgust me.
We gross each other. Like, we gross ourselves out sometimes. We're like, oh, we're so cringe, but it's cute. Because, like, you see, like, old couples who are still walking down the street holding hands. They give each other a little peck and you're like, fuck, that's adorable.
Yeah, yeah.
But this is where it starts. Like, it starts when you're young and you get to show that to your kids. It's really special.
You know what's crazy? It's like sometimes it doesn't even start when you're young. Like, my grandparents, my nan and grandpa were together for 42 years, and then my nan decided after 42 years, long story, I won't go into why it happened, but I love you, nan. You're fucking crazy. She didn't want to be a part of the marriage anymore. And then he ended up finding the love of his life at like 60 something years old.
Yeah.
These two people, they're just like teenagers holding hands, kissing, going on holidays, all this stuff.
Yeah. And I think like my mum, she hasn't had a relationship in about 15 years. And my biggest wish for her is to find someone. And even though like we're younger, I still feel like being in a healthy relationship and showing anyone in my life, including my mum, what a healthy relationship looks like, because she's never had one, then she gets to see that and go out and find that too.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Wow.
Like, we can be the example to everyone in our lives, young and old, of what a healthy relationship looks like and what it gets to be if you get honest about what you want instead of just settling for whoever comes along.
I think one thing that's really powerful as well is because I know Zach, and Zach opened it up on our podcast as well, for anyone who hasn't seen that episode, especially the first episode, and link for that is in the description as well, is that he said that he felt the ultimatum you know, and it was a big decision for Zach getting clean and sober. And I think it's so important that you had that boundary at least, you know, and it might have taken a few times to find the right person for it to actually stick to, but you had your morals, and it was like, if you're not willing to be the right person, like that's it, you know.
And I think what people need to realize as well is that was probably one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, because I fell in love with Zach so quickly. Like when I sat down with him, I said, I'm telling you this because I love you and I want you in my life. If you don't change, we can't do this, and it's going to kill me, but that's just the reality of it. And, you know, it's not easy to get honest with someone that you love about what you want and ask them to change. It was, one of the hardest things I've ever had to do.
That's crazy. I've never had to have that serious conversation with someone, but big ups for doing it, because you've changed Zach's life around, and of course with the work that Zach's done for himself, like it couldn't be done without Zach doing it, but you gave him that push, you know?
And that's something that I emphasised to him. I said to him, I don't want you to do it for me. I want you to do it for you, because I want you to be fulfilled and happy, and the things that you want in your life, you're not going to get if you stay where you are, with or without me. So either change for me or someone else. Balls in your court.
Yeah, that's so cool. That's so powerful. It's there, and to be honest, all that came from you deciding what you wanted, and then you build up the courage to know, okay, if this person isn't the person for me, that's fine. I've got to tell them to go. But I had this conversation on the last episode as well with Zach. Was like, the most selfless thing you can do is work on yourself. Make sure you're happy. You know, make sure that like you're waking up every day with a smile and going to bed proud of the day you had. Knowing your morals aren't being broken, you got your standards. I learned this quote from someone, Josh Ramage, which was, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. Yeah. You know? And it's so powerful.
That is, I've never heard that before, but that just hit different. From everything that I've been through, absolutely that's true.
Yeah, it's so cool. Yeah. I think you're and it's crazy as well, because I didn't know this until literally we were having these conversations off camera recently, that you have grown a fan base on TikTok, and, you know, you have the people that watch your vlogs and they understand your lifestyle and your routine and the journey you've been through as well. And I think it's so fucking net beneficial to the world, not just you, that you were in a terrible situation a few times in a row, and then you've come this far since being so, you know? Yeah. And the person I'm talking to today, as I said to you, is like, I would never guess that you went through any of the stuff you went through. I would never guess it. Yeah. And it all came from, and to be honest, you showed a lot of courage, I noticed, through this conversation multiple times.
Oh, yeah.
You showed a lot of courage. So just pack up and move, go up to Cairns, come back. Nah, this guy's a fucking psycho. Got to get away from him. This guy's not safe. Let's go away from there. Like, that's admirable. Very, very admirable. I bet you've shown a lot of the people who watch your content strength, you know, a lot. Yeah.
And I think I realized, you know, after a time that, you know, I had a responsibility not just to myself, but to everyone that's watching me, to do the right thing, not just by myself, but by them too. Like, I don't want people to watch me and think that that's okay, because it's not. I was fucking miserable. I don't want anyone to have to go through what I went through. So I felt like I had a responsibility to show them, hey, this isn't normal. I'm getting out of this situation. You should too. Yeah. Because it's fucked.
That's fucking so cool, man. That's so fucking cool.
Sorry.
That's all right. I'm just so impressed with just hearing people's courage. Courage just is amplifying. It's addicting. Yeah. So now I want some courage. What should I do today? Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. So what about, have you picked up again? Because you did say that you stopped your lifestyle of making content and vlogging and TikToking and stuff. Is TikToking and vlogging something that you're getting back into?
Yeah, again? Definitely. I have tried to get back into vlogging a few times, but it just hasn't been the same, because I've been through so much since I stopped that. So it's definitely something I want to get back into, but I think it's going to have to be done differently, safer.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
You know, not showing my daily routines and stuff like that, because that got me in so much trouble. But yeah, I've been posting a lot of content on TikTok lately, mostly couple stuff. Yeah. Me and Zach and our life now and my experience with like ADHD. And, you know, recently I was medicated with medical marijuana, and I've quit that because I've decided, you know, even though, you know, I'm not on any sort of medication at all for anything, that was in place of medication. And I realized that in order to overcome all my trauma, unpack it all, and be the best version of me, I can't do it when I'm buzzed. It's not the same.
Yeah.
I've got to just raw dog it, get through the fucking trenches so that I can be the best version of me.
Yeah. I think so many people are confused with the fact of what marijuana is doing to people. It's like, I can't tell people not to do drugs. I'll never tell people not to do drugs. In fact, I promoted it on my podcast for a very long time to do drugs. So I'll be a hypocrite if I said don't do it. However, I just think people are unaware of the fact that you're not living up to your full potential if you're smoking dope. Like, it's so obvious to anyone who doesn't smoke dope. So the people that smoke weed who think it's a good thing, you know, no one who doesn't do it promotes it.
I definitely think, like, it has its place in the world, but I don't think it's something that should be permanent. I think it should be, you know, you've been through something super traumatic, you need someone to take the edge off. Here, have it for 12 months.
Yeah.
But don't do it for the rest of your life because you'll be selling yourself short. You've got to get honest about when is the time to stop and when to go through all the shit that you need to go through to be better. Like, you're never going to be better if you're numbing it, you know?
Yeah, 100%. I couldn't agree anymore. And to be honest, that's the same with any substance, the same with alcohol, the same with any prescription drug.
Yeah.
You're just unfortunately never going to be able to deal with the shit if you're not raw dogging the fucking situation.
Yeah, it's a
you know?
Band-Aid.
Yeah.
It's not a solution.
Yeah.
It's something that, you know, I don't want to encourage medical marijuana because I don't think it's for everybody. But I think if a doctor has looked at you and said, yeah, you're going to, you know, spiral without it, have it for a bit, go to therapy, but don't stay on it forever.
Yeah. Therapy is a big point to add to it, you know.
Yeah.
Therapy is a massive point to add to it because it's not going to fix your problem. You've got to fix your problem still.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. So then with the content in the future moving forward, I know that you and Zach filmed the first episode of the podcast. Is it something that you're planning on doing like once a week, once a month, whenever it comes up? Is there a schedule? What are you thinking about doing with that?
I think we probably want to do it once a week. And, you know, I think we were talking about the concept of it earlier, of being able to give people advice like on a bi-weekly basis and then, you know, telling our story every other week that we don't do that and just, have a safe space for us to talk about everything that we've been through and the lessons we've learned. And also a place for people to come, whether it's anonymously or they want to say their name, that's totally up to them, and have a space for them to be able to tell their story and then hear advice from us, from, you know.
What's so cool is like you both have genuinely been through so much adversity and overcome so much, which is the most important thing, right? Because like, the worst thing you've ever been through is the worst thing you've ever been through. It doesn't matter if your whole family was tragically blown up in a war or if you got fired from your job and you've grown up privileged. It's still the worst day of your life, right? However, it's overcoming those challenges that are relatable. Not many people are relatable to the fact that the worst thing you've ever been through is your parents being blown up, or the fact that the worst thing you've ever been through is you losing your job.
Yeah.
But to go through something like abusive relationships and to go through something like addiction as well, to then have a platform in which you can both offer people solutions, guidance and advice and relatability is so fucking sick. You're going to cover so much market in helping people, you know?
We're so excited.
Yeah.
My whole vision when I started my TikTok 5 years ago was I just want to help people. I just want to be there. I just want to be, you know, a sounding board, a safe space. You know, maybe they're in an abusive relationship and they just want to doom scroll my page for 5 minutes so they can forget about it, you know?
Yeah.
I wanted it to be a safe, happy place for people to come. Unfortunately, I ended up documenting a lot of shit that I went through, but I think ultimately that helped people anyway.
Of course.
And I think that this podcast that we've made is going to do a lot of good. And
I can't wait to
do
be
it.
listening. I can't wait to listen week after week. And then when everyone tells me they had a problem with someone, I'm like, well, I heard some great advice lately. Shout out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So. That's cool. And what about the daily vlog stuff? And like, did you genuinely enjoy doing it for a long time? And even though there was periods that got a bit dangerous, if you genuinely loved it at one point, I think it should be something that you do try and do and never try and stop.
Yeah.
Just, of course, just be a bit more careful in whatever realm you want that careful to be, but you should get back into it because it sounds like you had a lot of happiness at the time in which you were doing it. You know?
I did. And like half my brand was built off the back of that. Like people know me as the welcome bitch girl.
Yeah.
And it's definitely something I really, really want to do that again.
People are going to love seeing people get confused and they think, and I always thought as well, that the number one story everyone wants to see is they want to see someone fall and burn and crash. Like people go on TikTok and they love watching videos of car crashes and parachutes that don't open, and people would love to see Jake Paul get knocked out finally after all this time, and people want to hear about the people getting busted for steroid use in the games and all this stuff, because it's just part of the human condition to want to see Goliath fall down, right? But I realized that the best story is actually watching someone stand back up. Yeah. It's not actually watching someone fall that we love. We want to watch someone get back up.
Yeah.
So the redemption is the story that we're after.
My redemption arc is coming.
Yeah. Your redemption arc is going to be a great arc, you know. Yeah. For the people who have already watched and for the new people that will come along for the journey, like they've seen you go through something dark and then to climb back out of it again. That's the real hope that there is in the world, because knowing someone climbed out of a hard place isn't that inspiring, unless you know for a fact that you've seen them in their high, then back in their low again, then back in their high. Because just hearing about how someone used to be sad and now isn't enough, I think, to really hit with people. But to know that someone's gotten out of it and to watch it, that's when serious impact can be made in the world, you know.
I think because I realized how much impact I had on people, that when I make my comeback, I want to do it from a healthy place where I can be like, hey guys, like I'm a totally different person. Welcome back. I'm a different fucking person, but I'm still Robyn.
Yeah.
Like I'm still here, I'm still me. But you won't be hearing about, you know, my meltdown that I had this morning and how I cried for the last 5 hours. You won't be hearing that anymore because that's not my reality anymore. Like I've totally turned my entire life around.
Yeah.
And
if you felt like you had a bit of a responsibility before to be able to let the people watching know you don't need to say in this, I think you have an even bigger responsibility to let people know. It doesn't have to be now, but at some point, whenever you feel like you're ready, I made it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like that warms me up. It almost makes me teary to think to myself, like, I'd love to know that someone made it. Yeah, they went for it. Yeah.
And I think as well, like on another vein of things, like I also started comparing myself because everybody started vlogging. Like I vlogged every day for 2 years and then it became a trend.
Yeah.
And everybody's vlogging now.
Yeah.
So I started comparing myself to all these other bigger influencers who have like these aesthetic homes, these nice cars, like these nice meals that they're cooking, and they have good lighting, good cameras, all that sort of stuff. And I started going, oh, well, no one wants to watch my stuff because they can watch that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I've come to terms with the fact, again, like what we were talking about earlier, messy action. It doesn't have to be perfect.
Yeah.
Like it was never perfect for me to begin with. I used to vlog, my house was trashed, like, and I didn't care. So yeah, I'm almost back there.
Yeah.
Give me a few weeks.
Yeah, whenever, trust me, there's no timeline on weeks. You might find in 6 months' time that you're like, I'm glad I didn't do it yet because now is definitely the time to do it. You know, whenever it happens, it happens. But yeah, I'm going to be happy to see that video come out. And I'm only saying it because I'm just imagining being a fan of someone and watching them finally post that video. Like, welcome, bitch.
Yeah. And like I've posted a few vlogs here and there over the last 12 months, but it just I wasn't where I wanted to be for everybody else as well. And for myself, like I wasn't prepared for all the questions and where have you been, what happened, because, you know, ultimately people have questions.
Yeah.
They want to know what's been going on and why I haven't been posting, and I want to be able to give them answers, but I didn't have the answers yet. I didn't want to come with something half-assed. I wanted to be real. Yeah. And I needed time to process what I'd been through.
Oh, well, I think that, like, to be honest, like everything's only happened so recently, you know, the ascension forward has only really just begun, which is crazy to think where it's going to take you. You know what I mean? Some people might spend 5-10 years trying to get themselves out of a rut. I've met lads and I've worked with lads that are still upset from the marriage not working out 15 years ago. Like, it's crazy how long it takes someone to climb out of a hole. So I'm not saying you're at the top. I'm definitely saying you're out of the hole, I can tell.
Yeah.
But you're nowhere near the top of the mountain, because the mountain is huge. And it's not huge as in a challenge. It's like the levels in which there are to go are so infinite, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so cool. And then I do know this as well from off camera as well, but you are involved in like mentors and coaching and stuff like that as well, and the people that you follow. How important to you is it having like a mentor and someone like that?
Oh, so important. Like, I need to learn from people who have what I want. Like, I'm not going to take advice from someone who doesn't have what I want. That's stupid.
Yeah.
So I went and sought that out. And, you know, now I'm doing high ticket sales. And, you know, the people who are in this space are so fucking inspiring. Like, half of these people have come from literally nothing. And they did everything that they possibly could to get where they are. And it just shows like raw determination. And that's what I needed to surround myself with. I wanted to surround myself with women who were empowered and who wanted more for their families and stuff like that. Like, you know, from where I come from, you know, 2-3 years ago, I was hanging around people who lived for the weekend.
Yeah.
And would sit there and we'd just bitch about their partners. I'd bitch about my boyfriend. We'd bitch about our kids. Like, I'm not interested in that anymore. I want to be looking for the solutions, not talking about the problem.
Yeah,
you know
that's
what I
sick.
mean?
Yeah, that's so sick. Most people do. They live for the weekend and they escape the life they live Monday to Friday. But I think I heard Jake Paul say it as well. You should be spending Saturday, Sunday trying to build the Monday to Friday you want.
Yeah.
You know? Because, fuck, I can't... It's only recently I've started to realise, like, I don't want to fucking work anymore. I don't want to go to someone else's job site and build shit.
Yeah.
Like, I love it, but if I want to build shit, I want to build it for me.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, 100%.
And high ticket sales is such an interesting thing to get into. But even the whole world of online space and community and mentorship and coaching, and I thought it was just a men's thing until I honestly sat down and met you today. I didn't know that women had the same support network.
It's huge.
And I thought genuinely women, it's only because I'm a man and I don't know. Like, I didn't think women had influential role models the same way men do. I didn't think that.
100%.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I love Mel Robbins. I think she's fucking great. Like, the Let Them theory, that's one of my favorite things like, I try and live by that. Yeah, there's so many influential women out there that I just...
So does that mean like when you go on your Instagram and you're like scrolling, you see like podcast clips of girls and like inspirational girls, and there's like, because I didn't know that those pages existed, eh?
Well, I mean, for me, I take the value as I see it. Like, you know, I'll be scrolling on my page, I'll see people like Tana Mojo. Like, yes,
I gotta be honest, I'm not gonna know any of the people you're talking about.
She's I used to watch her on YouTube way back in the day, like 2015, I'm talking. And she comes from absolutely nothing, living on the strip in Vegas. You know, her parents didn't give a shit about her. And now she has one of the biggest podcasts in the world. Wow. And it's just her and one of her friends, and they just sit there and they talk about other influences and stuff like that. So it's not really, you know, an inspirational podcast, but just seeing where she's come from versus where she is now. She's self-made. She built that on her own. Yeah. You know? And even people like
even you said Mel Gibson, is that who you said?
Mel Robbins.
Mel Gibson. I'm like, Mel Robbins. I'm thinking, I just nodded like, oh yeah, but I'm thinking, I don't know who that is either.
Yeah.
You know, yeah.
And like, I look up to people like Kris Jenner. Like, she's self-made too. She built an entire personal brand for her whole family from fucking scratch. Yeah, true. And now they're billionaires.
Yeah.
Like, it's not the actual content, it's the person and where they've come from versus where they are now and how they did it. Like, that to me is fucking inspiration.
That makes sense. Yeah, I guess so. Because it's like, I think about that in a sense too. Like, most of the people that I look up to, I don't really look up to what they do. Like David Goggins, I don't give a shit about ultramarathon running. I'm not interested in it. But I'm interested in the determination and willpower it took to become the type of person that can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
You know, and even the brands I look up to and the influencers I look up to, like Jake Paul, I mentioned him before, so I'll say it again. It's like he's one of my influencers. I don't care about boxing all that much, influencer boxing, but I care about someone who's just made themselves go from 0 views to making $50 million in one day. You know? Like, I'm interested in that story. Yeah.
Like, one of my biggest inspirations is Kat Clark. Like, she came up on TikTok after I started. So I didn't know who Kat Clark was until like probably 18 months ago. And now her and her kids have a personal brand. They're, you know, 14 and I think 21 or something like that. And then she's in her 30s. But she did the same thing, something very similar. Come from nothing, just started posting on social media, and now they have like multiple $1 million brands. Yeah. And they're moving to the States. Like, they've come from nothing. They've built their entire lives up. Yeah. And that to me is inspirational. Yeah, that's sick. And the best part about inspiration too is I've been yet to be proven wrong. If you want something bad enough,
you will get it every time. You know, it's always the person. I've never heard a story yet about someone who took risks and tried their hardest and didn't work out.
Yeah.
I've only ever heard the opposite.
Yeah.
If it's so common that it doesn't work out, why is people not telling me don't do it? It's not. I've tried it, didn't work out.
Yeah.
They didn't try it. You know.
Yeah.
The only episodes I've ever done where people haven't ended up achieving what they wanted is if they stopped wanting it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I don't want to be a fighter anymore. I don't want to be this type of career anymore.
Yeah.
But everyone that just commits gets it. So might as well commit to the moon, eh?
Yeah.
Commit to the highest possible thing.
Yeah. And I think I said it earlier off camera, like, it comes down to, like, how bad do you fucking want it, and who are you willing to become to make that happen? Like, if you're not willing to change a single thing about yourself, give up now, because it's not going to happen. You know what I mean? You got to get out of your own way and take your wanker cape off, and, you know, stop thinking that you have everything figured out now, because you don't.
All right. Again, we're at that shit part of the episode, all right? We've been forced by technology to bring it to an end. And I have one final question I want to ask you, but I have to say, before I do ask you this final question, I want to say that the story I've heard today has been one of the greatest redemption stories I've ever heard so far, all right? I was excited to do this episode, one, because Zach had already praised you up in the past, so I was excited to do it in the first place. Two, it's nice to have some female woman energy in the podcast as well. And third of all, you absolutely blew my expectations out of the water with rock bottom compared to now, all right? Yeah. So it's absolutely incredible. But the final question I want to ask you is the same question I ask every single person that's ever done the podcast so far. And that's that if someone came to you for advice because they're feeling depressed, mostly because they were just lost, is there any advice you would give that person?
So I think ultimately sitting down and thinking about who it is that you want to be and envision yourself as the happiest, most fulfilled version of yourself. What does that look like? You know, how do they act? How do they dress? How do they walk, talk, all the things that I said before. And getting clear on that, and then slowly taking the steps to get closer to that person, whether it be through therapy, self-development, journaling, like anything that opens your mind to the possibilities of what you're capable of. Take those steps, because staying in depression, you're not going anywhere. Like, you know, we only have this one life, and you get to decide what it looks like. You don't have to stay where you are. You don't have to be depressed. Like, it might sound harsh, but like, you're choosing to be depressed if you're staying there. If you're not taking the steps to get better and be better, you're not going to, if that makes sense.
Oh, of course. That makes so much sense. Because if you don't know who you are in the first place, of course you're going to feel lost. And it's like no one's expecting anyone to know who they are. That's a hard thing. But working out who you want to be, that's at least somewhere to go, you know?
Yeah.
And yeah, I couldn't agree with it anymore. Because I think, and to piggyback on top of it as well, once you do know who you are, you have to just stop doing the things that aren't going to get you there.
Yeah.
And that's just something I've recently learned too.
Yeah. Deciding what no longer serves you, and then finding what does serve your higher vision, and doing whatever it takes to reach that.
Yeah. Like, I don't know, it takes a long time to be able to work out who you want to be if you're not consciously working on it. But even subconsciously, you have inspirations, and everyone's got role models, and everyone's got guidance, whether it be online or in person or at the gym, or there's going to be someone you see that has something you want, you know? And once you know you want it, if your choices aren't going to get you there, just stop doing it.
Yeah. And also seek out people who have what you want. Get close to those people, and, you know, you are a product of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So who are you spending time with? Are the people that you're spending time with depressed? Because they're rubbing off on you. If you don't want to be depressed and you want your life to be better, make that assessment and act accordingly. It's okay to pivot. You don't have to stay where you are. Keep pivoting until you find something that works for you, that is making you happy, and stop at nothing.
I love it. I love it. I tell you what, I couldn't be more happy and appreciative of this episode. It was a great answer to wrap up such a great episode. I said it to, I think, off camera, so that people listening might not know, but I'm going to do a joint episode with both Zach and yourself and I'm very looking forward to that. But until this day, it was an amazing episode, so thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and for everyone listening, almost forgot, as I always do. Thank you for making it to the end of the episode. It was an amazing week this week. There'll be another one next week. That's a wrap.